Yo, what's good, y'all? So today I wanted to talk to y'all about the diversity that I saw in the two towns that I visited in Germany, in the Rhineland. That's Dusseldorf and Cologne. So first things first, I always do a little bit of research about a city before I go there, especially with solo traveling. I feel like that's important so you can stay safe. And before going to Dusseldorf and Cologne, I actually found some research, some articles about there being no-go areas for black people in those two towns and among other towns in Germany. And of course that worried me. So apparently this research was done by the UN where they went into the town and interacted with officials. And after that study, the UN actually reported systemic racism from a lot of towns in Germany, which they said was due to an incomplete understanding of history and how that lack of understanding actually screws up their whole perception of racism and the discrimination that black people face in Germany. So that's what I actually had in my mind going in. Not expecting it to be like that, but just knowing that there's a possibility. In my experience, there was nothing to experience. Nothing really happened. I mean, I was only there for 2 days, so it doesn't really mean anything that I didn't experience anything. It's just that it's not super blatant, you know, all the time. But like I said, I went there as a tourist, and I'm always wary of trying to give this information to people being a tourist without talking to locals, without talking to people who have actually lived there, because that's where discrimination's actually felt, when you're actually a part of the system. So take my experience with a grain of salt. I am. But nonetheless, that was my experience. As a matter of fact, I had one interaction with the police there, and I was jaywalking that night, and that was my fault, of course. But yeah, I mean, they literally just drove by in a car. There were 2 of them in the car, and they just like said something in German to me. I was like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. They're like, oh, he speaks English. And they're like, you walked when the light was red. I was like, oh, no, I didn't know. And I played the dumb American card. And they're just like, they just shook their heads and kept driving. So, yeah, I'm happy with that. But I will say there aren't many black people in the Rhineland at all. I'd say in both cities it's less than 5%. I looked up some numbers, and that holds true. And it actually shows when you're there, it's just not many. But at least both populations of the cities are young, and I mean, you can still go out and have a good time there, no matter who you are. So one other thing to note, y'all remember when I went to the chocolate museum? If y'all didn't watch it, check out the Cologne video. I went to this chocolate museum, it sounded really cool, and I had a really good time there. But, you know, a couple of things came to my mind while I was there. Number one, 4 of the top 5 producers of cocoa are actually African countries. It's Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Nigeria, and Cameroon. And also in the top 5 is Indonesia. And 6 through 10 are all Latin and South American countries. And being that the museum that I went to was actually owned by the Swiss company Lindt, you know, it started to run through my mind. It's always a theme that these countries with this abundance of natural wealth and these minerals and materials, raw materials, they're always the poorest countries. And the biggest chocolate companies, of course, are American or European companies. And a relatively small country like Cote d'Ivoire in Africa is 30% of the world's cocoa production. But a lot of that is child labor, and like these kids work 100 hours per week and hardly get paid anything. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that these countries were being exploited during the colonization era, and they're still being exploited today. And over the last 100 years, it's been a gift and a curse for a lot of these countries that they have this abundance of raw materials and natural wealth. And honestly, hardly a gift. I mean, mostly it's a curse because so many other countries have their hands in their pockets. Like, they rule the things that their land naturally grows. And I don't know what it's gonna take to kind of, you know, break away from that, but I hope I live to see the day. And one other thing about the chocolate museum. So in 1918, the Soroti Chocolate Company started a brand using what they called the Black Amours, which pretty much were figures of these black people carrying a tray, and they were decked out with turbans and harem pants. And it became one of Germany's most popular advertising figures during their economical miracle years. And it wasn't until 2004 that they responded to the pushback of the discriminatory image of the black slave. Yay for progress. And lastly, for English speakers, I'll say in Germany, it's pretty English friendly. I didn't have much problem with it. But I live in the Netherlands, and I've been spoiled because everybody speaks perfect English. I mean, better than most Americans. And in Germany, I mean, some people struggle with English, but you know, I could make out most conversations, or it never stopped me from doing anything I wanted to do while I was there. The only place that it really showed was when I went to the movies to watch Lion King, and it was in German. I don't know why I didn't think to check. In Netherlands, it's always in English, it just has Dutch subtitles. Which, when I went to Germany, I thought back, I was like, I guess it's weird that the Netherlands does that. It's not really weird that Germany does this. But I guess one good thing did come out of it. I learned that Hakuna Matata in English is the same as Hakuna Matata in German. Who would have thunk it? Okay, lastly, the food that I had there wasn't very good for me. I think it might have been the things that I chose to eat. There's this weird thing that they had called potato dumplings, which sounds good on the surface, but it's just like really soft, bready potatoes, but it doesn't, it's like flavorless also. It's really weird. I don't know why that's a thing. It should just be potatoes. But I have had like German foods, like the sausages and real potatoes, and it's really good. Maybe it's just not in that area. Maybe it's more Eastern Germany. But that weekend, Dusseldorf and Cologne, I didn't have very good food. I mean, that's my experience again. But I think I mentioned this, the beer is amazing. It's very good. I'm very happy about that. So it makes up for the food I had. But yeah, all in all, I'd recommend both places if you're passing through. I don't know if I'd like plan a trip out of the States just to come here to Dusseldorf and Cologne. There are better places in Germany, I'm sure. But the Rhineland was nice. It's mostly like cathedrals and museums to see though. Not much nature around there. So I'm gonna make my way out to the German Alps soon. So keep your eyes out for that, that's coming. But yeah, I appreciate y'all watching. That was my Afro review of the Rhineland. And I'm gonna catch y'all later. All right, y'all, peace.
Thanks for watching and subscribe to Afro Wonders.